It's good to be here with everybody. It's good to be here with everyone and not see you, but I guess be in the same vicinity as you. I know it's been a while since we saw a lot of you, which was this past January, in Myriad at the conference. But for those of you that don't know me, my name's Nathaniel. I'm a business risk consultant here at Granite, and I'm the one that's heading up this Hot Springs Association program. And then this is Cameron. Cameron's our CEO. He's our national practice leader, and he really sits over top of all of our niche developments. He's been helping me get all this up and going, and without him, it would be much harder. That's for sure. So really today, what we wanted to do is just take a little time, do a little bit of recap and what we went over at the conference this past January, explain the whole concept this at a high level, and then also talk about where we're at in the process. I do want to say that the fire marshals came into our building today and said they were doing a testing on our fire alarm system. So if you see me mute myself real fast, they said there's a chance it could go off. So they said it could go off between 12 and 2 o'clock. So I have no idea if it's going to go off.
Daniel, just take it seriously and evacuate the building. We don't need you burning up in there if it's actually a fire.
Just jump through the window, right?
There you go.
All right. So really just real briefly, I want to touch on the whole concept of what we were trying to accomplish here. And then we went over this. This is what our original presentation was on back in January of last year. But really, we knew there was a lot of grief within the hot springs industry from an insurance perspective. And when we were approached by the Hot Springs Association to kind of look into developing a program, there were several things going on behind the curtains that you guys were not happy with. And one of those things is underwriters are rating you guys as strictly a hotel motel. So think of being a Hilton hotel and Marriott, things of that nature. When in reality, you guys are not. You're a resort. You're a wellness resort. You're a wellness facility. So I think there was some education that needed to be done from an industry standpoint with those underwriters. Another thing was loss control. So there seemed to be some lacking of loss control from insurance companies because they really didn't even understand what you guys were doing. And there's not been any advocacy within the industry for you. The other thing is premium relief. And this is always a big conversation, rightfully so. And when we were at the conference, I remember I asked everyone to raise their hand if they had a 15% rate increase, 25% rate increase, and 50% rate increase, or at least that much. And we went all the way to 100% rate increase over the last year, and people were still raising their hands. So we do understand and realize that the premium and rate increase is an issue. And that whole point, one of the major points of this program is to help stop that bleeding. There will always be rate increases, but the goal is to not make it so drastic. The other part of this is really to create education for you guys on how to better your operations from a risk management and mitigation standpoint. And that really is done on the back end through data analytics, pulling all the data from the hot springs industry together in one place so that we can know what issues you have going on and how to address those, as well as, incident response trainings and things of that nature. But the biggest thing here that we are trying to make sure everyone understands is we are here to develop a partnership with you. We are not here to facilitate a transaction. We want to be, much like you look at your lawyer and your accountant, we want to be that person you call when you want to implement a restaurant. You want to, maybe you don't offer massage and you're looking to offer massage next year. We want to be a part of those conversations as a partner to the business, not someone that just pushes paper for you and facilitates a transaction. So phase one. So there's really 3 phases of this whole program and what we're trying to do. And we're currently in phase 1. Phase 1 opened up was September, October of last year. So it's pretty new. And I've been reaching out to several of you. I've had conversations with a lot of you so far about phase 1 and where we're at and what it even looks like. So essentially, after the conference in January, we went out to market and we spoke with a lot of different insurance companies. There are insurance companies that are currently insuring you guys and some that are not. And there was a lot of interest. And inevitably, we had conversations with three insurance companies that understood our mission here and wanted to partner with us to help you guys. Um, it's not just that there's three companies in the country or three companies that Granite Insurance has access to place hot springs resorts. It's that there are actively three insurance companies, three insurance carriers that are willing to partner with us and understand our mission and help grow this as we move forward. One of those companies is exclusive to Granite Insurance. So it's a market that only Granite Insurance has access to for hot spring resorts. And I know there are a lot of different eligibility questions, or there will be a lot of eligibility questions between those three carriers. But really, we could have a 2-hour conversation on that. Really, it boils down to three things: location, operations, and experience. So we sent all of you guys all the hot springs data that we had to these carriers. They looked over it, and they were good with a majority of the operations. It's just, there's some operations, maybe you're in 100 out of 100 wildfire score, something like that, we have other options for at that point. It's just, it wouldn't be an option for one of these three carriers. Mm-hmm. So then I'll let Cameron talk about phase two.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit on phase one, guys, you may say, well, why did you choose three? Kind of to Nathaniel's point, for example, the option one may say, all right, thanks, Granite, for telling us a little bit more about the hot springs resort industry. This is really cool, and we see how it's different than a Motel 6, like you're currently being classified, and we're willing to recognize that and how we structure things. But we're not okay with California, or we're not okay with anything. We're not okay with the East Coast. Something of that nature. So we have those three carriers that kind of plug and play, like Nathaniel mentioned, for different scenarios, because really the whole goal here is to get everybody under and kind of under this umbrella of the hot springs program. And kind of touching on the next slide, guys, one of the biggest questions we've got is, am I not eligible for this program? What happens if I'm not eligible for this program? The goal here in phase one is to not have anyone that is technically not eligible. I would say between those three programs that we have set up, probably 90% of people will be eligible for one of those three programs. But even if you don't fit in one of those three programs, you will still be eligible for the Hot Springs Association member program. It just may be with a different carrier that's not within those top three. And really see those top three those are going to be the three most aggressive carriers. But there are going to be scenarios sometimes when the risk profile maybe does not fit one of those three carriers. For example, like Nathaniel mentioned, if you are in a 100 out of 100 wildfire score, that is difficult right now, especially with everything going on in California. Even here in North Carolina, who thought wildfires would be an issue? We just had one breakout 2 days ago that I think now is only 15% contained. But that's becoming a bigger and bigger issue in the insurance world. And so those are landscapes that we're continuing to navigate through that. The whole goal of phase one is development and kind of teeing things up for phase two. It's really essentially getting everybody a buying power together in one spot with Granite Insurance and the Hot Springs Association program, so that we can put ourselves in a position with a large buying power to move to phase two. All right. So really what phase two looks like, guys, is where we would essentially move everybody from all 3 or 4 of those different insurance carriers into most likely one massive insurance program that we have 95% of control of. For example, this group would be able to say, hey, well, we want, added coverage for, trying to think of something, one of the big issues we find right now is there not being any coverage for any type of bacteria or infection that would be set up. And that's a real issue with the waters and, the pools that people are in, but being able to design that coverage into that. So it's really moving everything to one company to rule them all and become the premier Hot Springs Association, the premier hot spring resort insurance program. That is what phase two looks like. And with that buying power that you have, if you've only got one person spending 100,000 of insurance premium, that's different buying power than if you have a group spending $10 million of insurance premium. And that's essentially the position that we're trying to get to. And also bridging the gap between the insurance education. At that point, whenever you control that insurance program, you're kind of crafting that around the industry. You're not trying to educate an insurance company every single time about, okay, well, this is the reason why we don't filter our water. This is why, or this is why we don't use chlorine. Those conversations that you guys are probably used to banging your head up against the wall every year, educating an insurance company about that. So that's really what phase two looks like. A question that we get a lot of times is, well, if we all go to essentially one program, what happens if there's, bad apples in that program? Does it really affect us all? So whenever we design that program in phase two, it is an elite program. There is a barrier of entry. There are certain things that if you are not doing certain things from an operational perspective, from a risk management perspective, that you will not get into that program. And that's to protect everyone and protect everyone's rates, and to essentially being able, like Nathaniel mentioned, control those insurance premiums going forward. Just because if you do get, 10 bad apples in that program, it can really affect everyone's rates. So having kind of a barrier of entry from an operational and risk management perspective is key. Now we will be able to help those people that may say, I don't know why they would say this, but if they say, you know what, we're not willing to implement those risk management characteristics on our property, we'll still be able to help those people, but they will not qualify for the elite program, which is going to have the best pricing, the best coverages, things of that nature, within phase two. And again, at the end of this, one thing from a housekeeping perspective, guys, throw your questions in the chat box from a housekeeping perspective. Anytime you think of a question, throw them in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that as we go through the presentation. And then, of course, at the end, we'll pause for Q&A as well. But throw those in the chat function, and we can begin seeing those. I think you guys have the chat function on. You either have the chat function on or the Q&A function. Either one of those, we'll be able to see those questions come through. Nathaniel, anything on phase two that I missed that you think would be important to highlight?
No, I think, it's everyone's probably like, well, why didn't you just go to one insurance company from the beginning to do this? It really comes down to having data in hand and having buying power, like Cameron said. It's a business decision for the insurance company. They have to have data to look and see if it makes sense for them. And then they have to have premium in that first year to help fund in that first and second year for any large potential losses. So it's just like a normal business decision for everyone. They have to make sure it pencils and it makes sense for them. Mm-hmm. So when you're moving to that one insurance company, that's why we have to go from phase one to phase two, is we have to have data and we have to have premium to get to that point. Mm-hmm. And I also say we're already in conversations with insurance companies on phase two. It's just we have to get that data and that premium in-house to be able to move to that stage.
And to Nathaniel's point, we could have chosen one insurance company and they may have just said, okay, well, we're willing to do this. We're just going to exclude the states of, we'll do it all. We're just going to exclude the states of California, Arizona, and Utah, and Colorado. And it's like, well, that cuts out like a significant portion of the members that we want to be able to help. And so we kind of had to plug those gaps with 2 additional carriers. All right, Nathaniel, take it away with kind of what optimization in phase 3 looks like.
Yeah, so phase 3, it's just an optimization phase. So this is where we really get the chance to dive in and looking at coverages, tweaking coverages, adding coverages, or even removing coverages, maybe something that we don't necessarily need. Tweaking the renewal process, understanding what that looks like and making it better as things move forward, and then also enhancing rates. The enhancing rates kind of falls into that second bullet point there, which is the data-driven insights. So once we have everyone together with one insurance company, we can then aggregate all of your loss data. And at that point, we can say, well, 65% of claims, dollars and frequency, is coming from slip and falls. Okay, let's dive into it deeper. Why? Well, maybe it's because people are getting dehydrated in the tubs when they stand up. They're in there too long. They stand up and they fall. And maybe at that point we can figure out a way to help prevent that from happening. And the other thing about phase three is we always will have our eyes on other markets. The last thing we want to do is to be caught, say that one insurance company comes in that says, hey, we don't want to do this anymore. We will always be looking at other companies so that we can optimize it into the future. So there will always be eyes looking forward so that we can, if there is a better option other than that one company, then we have that in the back of our pocket. Yeah, that's all I have on phase three.
That's good. And kind of to talk about the optimization and to give a real life example to you guys, we do a lot in the outdoor recreation world, and we stood up a very similar program in the outdoor recreation world. And it started off where it had, on the rafting side of things, it had minimum ages for the different class of rivers. And they were somewhat higher than we really wanted going in. But as the program grew into year 2 and year 3, those ages were able to be lowered as the program enhanced. So that's what a great example of what Nathaniel's talking about is like, something starting here, then enhancing that program, enhancing that rate, becoming more accommodating, things of that nature within that.
As the insurance company gets more and more comfortable, they get more and more data, the less lenient or the more lenient they'll be.
Right. We've talked a lot about the actual insurance carrier, and to kind of bring everything back to center and talk about even more benefits to this program and the reason why behind it. And just a reminder, Granite Insurance, we are not an actual insurance company. That's where we talk about we're going to these companies, the actual people taking the risk, paying the claims are these carriers that we're talking about. What we are is an advisor. We're an advisor, an agent, a broker, similar to your local agent that you would have right now. We are the exact same thing. We are an agent. It's just we choose to operate in very specific niche industries and bring value to those communities and those niches rather than just saying, hey, we want to insure all businesses within a 50-mile radius from us. That's not really our philosophy. Our philosophy is to become an inch wide and a mile deep in certain industries. So let's talk about those additional benefits of not the carrier, what they're bringing to the table, but from a broker and advisor perspective, what are we bringing to the table that's probably different than, your current agent who comes to you and says, hey, tell me about this like hot spring world. Like how in the world does it even happen? What do you do? The first thing which we talked just a little bit on was education and training. These are things that we do for our industries and our niches as far as either webinars or specific training for you and your management team, where we're talking about like incident reporting best practices. For example, we just did one for this week for a large hot spring resort in California on what do you say and what do you not say to the guest whenever an incident happens. What can you do? Can you help them? Like if they're bleeding from their foot and they get a cut on one of the pools, like should you help them hold the towel there? Like we talk about those things with your management team and your staff. What can you say or what should you put on the incident report? And more importantly, what should you not put on the incident report? Like we see so many incident reports where it says, oh my gosh, Johnny, I told him 3 times before this happened, he shouldn't do this from a staff perspective, but he did it anyway. And the guest was injured. Like that's not the time and place to put that on an incident report. All right. Like incident reports are factual, facts only. And we do training sessions based around that. Return to work programs. And this is dealing with workers' compensation. A lot of you probably don't know that 70% of your workers' compensation premiums are controllable. You can control that. But there's a specific process that you should be doing as far as whenever someone's injured, how to get them back to work in a light duty capacity and the financial effects that has on you as an organization. We do training sessions on that. Supporting and kind of educating your current structure as far as, the program partnership that comes with it as well. Nathaniel briefly touched on the loss control insights. and really effectively implementing, strategies around if this significant area of incidents are happening in slip and falls, pushing that out to all of you guys and saying, hey, 65% of claims happened here. Here's some risk management things you need to be implementing within your own organization before they happen, even though you may not have seen this trend in your organization yet. That's the benefit of a collective body, is taking the knowledge within one or a few hot spring resorts and pushing that to everyone else before it happens at their facilities. And additionally, on the loss control kind of things that you guys will see as a part of this partnership is you'll have access to a 24/7 safety hotline and email address. If you've got a safety question, an OSHA question, things of that nature, you can pick up the phone, call that hotline, and it's staffed by safety professionals. Same thing on the human resources side of things. 24/7 HR hotline that's staffed by HR professionals and 2 HR attorneys. So kind of the division that we have that staffs all of this is about a staff of 80 safety and HR professionals that are there to fuel those services. And you probably won't have any DOT, Department of Transportation questions, I would not think. But there's also a hotline and email address where you can call and ask DOT questions about, hey, we've got a CDL driver. What are the requirements that, from a training perspective, that we have to train them every year? What are the requirements we have to do from a hiring perspective? And then from an industry advocacy, we also have an expert claims team. And a good example of that is for you that have had a claim, did you just work with the insurance company, or did you have an advocacy group from your broker or your agent there to help you navigate that claim and kind of oversee the adjuster and to push the adjuster to settle that claim? So that's something that we have on our side of things. Plus, we're able to understand the hot spring resort industry to where we can have somebody there being your advocate, because claims are not fun. However, that could be the worst time of your life is whenever you have, a massive claim, whether it be a slip and fall, whether it be a fatality, whether it be, your whole building burned down. That's whenever we're able to enlist our advocacy group on the claim side to help be your advocate working with the insurance company partner.
Yeah, and this on that claims advocacy, that is a internal Granite Insurance claims advocate. That is not a claims advocate for the insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole point of that is you now have a third party claims advocate that their whole goal is to get claims paid. They do not have any ties to the insurance company, so it doesn't matter to them if the insurance company has to pay out $10 million on a claim. Their whole goal is to push as much claim dollars back into your pocket as possible.
A good example of that is in the southeast, Hurricane Helene went through and caused flooding and damages, actually where Nathaniel and I are both located. We're located about an hour apart from each other, but it affected both areas. We had significant damage. I think we had 350 claims just from Hurricane Helene. Through that, there were a lot of claims that were denied by the insurance company, but were improperly denied. The claims adjusters these days, they just don't think to open the policy and read the policy, unfortunately. So our advocacy group got involved on many of those. The advocacy group got over $5 million of claims granted that were originally denied, and to be able to return to our clients. That's the type of work they're doing, is finding coverage where the claims adjuster said that there was no coverage. So that's kind of a real life example and a benefit that you guys can see there. Anything else, Nathaniel, on additional benefits that I'm missing or skipped over?
No, I think you hit them all.
Great. Now we would love to hear from you guys. Questions. I know there's questions out there. Questions, thoughts, anything that you guys have. Let me pull up. I do think I think you guys have a Q&A section as well, but throw those in the chat or the Q&A box.
Yeah.
Okay, can somebody put some, I just want to make sure the chat function is on. Can somebody put something in the chat or Q&A just to make sure it's there?
Okay, that
Boom. All right, good. Thank you, Paige. But yeah, what questions do you guys have? And again, Nathaniel and I are here. There's no off limits questions. Anything you want to ask is perfectly fine.
And you cut my calls by 99%.
Great question, Nathaniel.
So we got a question. Did you already consolidate data across hot spring resorts that is relevant to share it? So last year during the hot spring, when we at the conference, we did collect data, but that data was more so to get those, those first three insurance companies we mentioned, they wanted to see some sort of data, and that's what we used to move forward with those three. The phase two insurance company, the data they're going to require is much broader and much deeper. The data that we requested last year, it's not, it's really not, it wouldn't even be a benefit to the hot springs industry in whole. It more or less was more around location information, premium information, just basic insurance data, not a whole lot of loss or industry trend loss data within that data we collected.
I think there is something, Nathaniel, in my opinion, I think would be really cool to share from a realization from that study is, all right, guys, so insurance companies on average expect to pay out 55% of every dollar that they take in premium and claims, okay? So if they take in $100,000, they expect to pay out $55,000, not every single year, but over, a 5-year period, that's what they expect to pay out. Because then they have expenses on top of that have to, to keep them running in order to kind of get to the full dollar or 100% there. The group of people we analyzed was, Nathaniel, I'm under 15%. Is that right?
The overall loss ratio was less than 5%.
Yeah. So the insurance company expectation is 55%, and you guys were less than, 6-7%. That's why we believe there's so much misunderstanding in this world is because of the data that we just shared with you right there. That's why there's so much opportunity here that we believe can really help you guys out, not only short term and long term.
Yeah. And Robert had a question. What are the next steps? Are we able to get quotes now, or do we have to wait till everything's in place? That's a great question. No. So we do not have to wait. Phase one is ready. And at this point, we're ready to take hot springs into this program. And then phase two, hopefully, depending on how soon and how quickly we can aggregate data in the phase one part of this, phase two hopefully can be open and ready to go within 12 to 16 months. Mm-hmm. Depending on how fast we get data, depending on how fast people come into the program, but I'm always very optimistic. So, yeah.
Next question was, do you have experience in all states? Yes, Len, we have clients in all 50 states throughout the U.S. A lot of us are, headquartered here in North Carolina, but we have clients in all 50 states.
Yeah.
And fun fact, one of our largest states is Hawaii, interestingly enough.
Yeah, actually. Within our home states, North Carolina, so it's crazy that Hawaii is one of our largest states.
Yeah.
Just to go back to that Robert's question there, if you want to email me, my email's there. The next steps here will be, let's set up a time to chat, and I want to chat with each one of you so that we can figure out the next path forward and what phase one would look like for you. So just call me, email me. My phone number's on there as well. And then we'll set up a time to go over things and see what the next steps are for you specifically.
And to kind of talk about a little bit of what that looks like, the biggest thing what we like to do, guys, on the front end is to do an analysis of your current program, where you get a little bit of insight into the opportunity moving forward. We'll do an analysis and say, hey, from a coverage perspective, like, these are problems. Like, has anybody ever told you don't have coverage for X, Y, and Z, or that you have too much coverage for here, here, and here, or that you're double covered for this, and this? So that's the analysis phase, and we kind of give you an opportunity to see, hey, what's your professional opinion of what we currently got before we even move forward into looking at what the Hot Springs Association program would look like? It's a good question here. So when a customer signs a waiver, does it make the claims process easier for the business owner if something happens? Nathaniel, you want to take that? You want me to run with it?
Uh, the waiver, the waiver is really your first layer of defense. I had a claim with it wasn't a hot spring resort. It was in a different industry. It was a fictitious claim. Honestly, it was a claim where somebody was saying that they were injured, um, at this site, at this location, because of the failure of the insured to do certain risk management on their park. Um, and come to find out, they did not. And because they had this waiver in place, the adjuster was then able to decline the claim because of the injury that occurred was essentially an assumed risk within that operation. So the adjuster had grounds to decline the claim, which, sometimes you hear people, businesses hear, oh, I don't want a claim declined. Well, sometimes you do. Sometimes people, insurance is there for actual legitimate injuries, and it's also there to protect you for when people maybe sue you for illegitimate reasons. And that waiver helps protect you against those situations where somebody maybe is filing a suit against you for no reason. So yes, waivers are important, and they're a good first tool to have. A lot of insurance companies even require waivers to be insured by them, and that is something that I do want to help you guys implement. We have a law group that we partner with that helps develop and create waivers. But that's a conversation that we have off on a one-off basis.
Great question.
Brent, oh, you responded to Brent. Okay.
Good. Keep them coming. Great questions, guys.
Yeah. And waivers, I'll also say this on a waiver. A lot of times people will go online and they'll pull a basic waiver, maybe a waiver or maybe you have a friend, maybe you're in California and you have a friend that's in Colorado and they have a waiver. So hey, send me your waiver, and you just put it in place and have people sign it. Truly, your waiver needs to be drafted by a lawyer for your state and for your specific operation, because they may have amenities or activities that you don't have, or you may have amenities or activities that they don't have. It's just important to have that drafted. Spend the $1,000, $2,000 to have it drafted for you, because it will pay dividends in the event you have a claim coming against you.
A great example is in Virginia, you actually cannot have a release of liability statement, which is a waiver. You can only have an assumption of risk statement. So if you have a release in Virginia, you would actually be going against public policy, which would put you in a worse position if you didn't have than if you didn't have either of those documents. So just state specific things like that pulling off of Google, you're not going to know.
Yeah. And some states, like with waivers, some states uphold waivers really well, and some states don't. It just depends on the legality and case law within each state. What else, guys? Those are good questions. Well, if that's it, we'll go ahead and cut everything off. I really appreciate you guys. Do you have a list of lawyers in each state that you recommend waivers? So there is a group that we can refer you to. So we can't draft waivers from Grant Insurance perspective because we're not lawyers. And if that waiver goes in front of a jury, and they find out that we drafted it, they are going to tear it apart. But there is a law group that I can share with everyone, and maybe we can send that out when we send out the recording of this webinar to that law group that can help you all out on a one-on-one basis.
You agree? Are you talking about recreation law group there, Nathaniel?
Yeah.
Yeah. We could probably give it right here. It's Leah Corrigan, and she's at Recreation Law Group. I think her email is actually Leah with an H at outdoorlaw.com, if you remembered that.
Yeah, the reason I didn't say that is I would have butchered that.
You would have butchered that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just have a good photographic memory, Nathaniel, so I can see those things. But she's great. She only does work in kind of the outdoor industry and the hospitality industry, and she's fantastic. We have no business. We get no compensation for that either. Well, thanks guys for hopping on today. It's good seeing you guys, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the future and helping you out.
Yeah.
Take care. Have a good day.
Guys. See ya.